south, and so she was very good at making sure that, you know, for the dinner parties that I was obliged to attend to, and her bridge parties, and her ladies' luncheons, and her book clubs, and all of that I was perfectly comfortable being sociable with her friends, and being, oh, Miss Cross, oh my goodness, how is your son doing? Is he doing fine? Oh, I heard that he had that little disease problem, but it's okay now. And she'll be, and, you know, Miss Cross would be like, oh, thank you for asking. And I was really good at that. I mean, that I learned, I practiced. My mother was very big on us presenting ourselves, my sisters and I presenting ourselves correctly. I remember a conversation with her in which, when I was in my unhappy teenager phase, that I needed to sit around and practice smiling whenever I was alone, because I didn't want to get frown lines. You know, that would be sad. And, you know, she was so good at it too, that I remember calling home. My sister worked in New York, and so calling home for 9/11, it took me 4 hours to get through, but I finally called, and my mother answers the phone in this wonderful, hello? How are you doing today? And it sounds like the sun is shining and the birds are singing at where she is. And I go, oh God, Mom, have you seen the TV? And she's like, oh yes, honey, oh, Taylor's fine, don't worry. So she's very good at presenting this kind of everything is good and happy. But there's this good side of that too, that she wants her daughters to be fearless. So she also was very intent on noticing whenever I was afraid of something and saying, you must do that now. So that, you know, there was a whitewater rafting trip associated with my sister's wedding, and I kept coming up with excuses that I didn't want to go, and she's like, you're afraid of this, you must go do it, and essentially like dragged me into the car. My father, less of a southern individual, was kind of, but he sort of went along with this too, especially the fearless aspect, that he was, you know, he's very much of the, like, fall off the horse, get back on, sort of thing, or anything bad that happened was always, isn't this so much fun? Like, we're canoeing down a river and canoe flips, and wasn't that fantastic? Or there's a really scary lightning storm and I'm freaking out, and he's like, let's go outside and watch it. On the cover of the porch, of course, but, you know, like, it was very much a, this is no reason to be afraid, this is just all lovely and nature and wonderful. And so I wanted to tell a story today that you know, involved this kind of persona of my parents. That and there's sort of my memories of it, and then what I learned about the event afterwards, which is, I was about 10, playing basketball with my dad and like cousins and random friends who were around. I'm playing basketball on this like old basketball court that was also a tennis court. So there's a net. And just imagine that it's evening, you know, it's summer, so maybe it's 7:30, so the light's starting to fade, and there's a net held up by a wire. And we're playing basketball though, so we're not playing tennis. I'm not really paying attention to this tennis thing. But in the middle of playing basketball, the ball rolls away. So I run after and chase it, right between the pole and what's holding up the net, and get clotheslined right here. You know, and my father's a doctor, so we have to add that one in too, but, like, you know, fall down, and I lie there stunned. And what I remember most is apparently my reflexes were good enough, thank goodness, that I held up my hands, and that stopped my fall, or anything bad happening, but they were bloody, like bloody across here and across here, and it was very upsetting. And my dad comes over and he's like, okay, you know, as soon as I start crying, he picks me up, okay, you're fine, let's play some more basketball. And all I really distinctly remember from this is that, oh my God, I don't want to play basketball, I'm getting blood all over the ball. And, you know, and I come back, I remember riding home, running into my mother and saying, I totally just almost fell down and hurt myself. And she's like, oh. But then I find out later, as we're talking, you know, because you talk with your adults, with your parents later as you're becoming more adult, I was like, oh my God, you guys were so great about making me do things again that I was scared of. And remember that time, Dad, I just remember Dad made me play, and I got this horrible basketball bloody, and I was so pissed off, but I guess I appreciate it. And she goes, oh, honey, your father was convinced he was going to have to do like a tracheotomy right there in the middle of nowhere, and then he came home and he cried for an hour, but he didn't let me know. And I just think about this, that you know, my parents really worked hard to make sure that my childhood, you know, they wanted to teach us to be fearless, but they also gave me a childhood where I don't remember fear, because they hid it so well. And I guess now as an adult, I think about it that I fake it often. I teach, I you know, pretend not to be afraid. Say in situations where I really did not want to tell a story tonight, but my husband said, "Don't be a pansy." So I said, "Oh God, I'm afraid. That means I have to do it because I can't show that I'm afraid."